Well, he was. Years ago.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining our Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District regular board meeting on Friday, May 1st, 2026. It's 2 p.m. So we'll call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Rotunda
Here.
Epstein
Here.
Schroeder
Here.
Tuker
Here.
Thornbrook here.
Excellent. We're all here. Announcements, and I'll note that our general manager is on PTO today. So our operations manager, Randy Benson, will be running the meeting. Randy.
Welcome, everybody, to the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Kirkwood Meadows PUD and the 2026 electric rate study public hearing. If you're attending online, would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function. And if you're here in the room, please go to the podium so that our online participants can hear you. Thanks.
Thank you, Randy. And then our votes will today be on roll call since we're all here in person. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, corrections to the agenda or the consent calendar. Okay. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, comments from the audience. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on any short non-agenda items that are within our jurisdiction. We can't take just long discussion or actions on matters not listed on the agenda per the Brown Act. So, for the rate study comments on the electric rate study, I'd say hold those comments that you potentially have to that agenda item if you have them. But other comments are welcome at this time. I see no one in the room. I see no hands up online, Brandy. Okay. In terms of written comments, we do have a few, but they are related to the agenda item later on 10A with the electric rate study public hearing. So we will discuss them on agenda item 6. Move on to agenda item number 7, which is adoption of the consent calendar. We have 3 items here: approving our board minutes from April 3rd, 2026, current consent for claims, and receivables past due report.
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Bob, motion, is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes. There's no items brought forward for separate discussion for agenda item 8. For agenda item number 9, the board is going to move into closed session for 2 items. 9A is a closed session regarding general manager appointment, and 9B is a closed session regarding conference with labor negotiators. We will be back in a few minutes after we have this closed session. So bear with us.
Just a few minutes, right? Is that?
Okay.
Okay, but don't talk about us.
How do you can? All right, thanks for everyone's patience with us. We've returned from our closed session for agenda items 9A and 9B. In the closed session, the labor negotiators updated the board on the work it has done on the task it was assigned from the April 6, 2026 KMPD board meeting, which was to consider options to fill the general manager position effective September 4th, 2026. There are no further actions that came out of either of the closed session topics. So we'll now move on to agenda item 10. And we have a number of items here, and agenda item 10A is our electric rate study public hearing. So I will remind everyone that this is not a regulatory process in the same way that we've done for water and wastewater or the fire assessment that we just did. This is something the board voluntarily does to follow a similar process to make sure it's consistent with across all of the utility rates that we structure. So we're going to follow a similar format that we followed for other public hearings, where I will open public comments as a part of this, and then we will close public comments. The board will discuss those comments, address comments that were raised, and we'll be able to deliberate on the items. Before we do that, as we've done in other 218s, we'll have Brandy walk through an overview of the process, the main items, as we get into the public portion of it. So step 1, we'll review the packet, what was in our packet. So Brandy will walk through that. We'll have public comments, and similar to what we've always done. Please try to keep it within a couple of minutes. If someone else has said something you've said already, or that you want to say already, please just acknowledge that. And so then that way we can try to make sure we move pretty efficiently through this so that everyone has a chance to provide comment today.
Could you just remind us why electric is different and therefore this is voluntary?
It's not covered, but Prop 218 does not identify electric or propane.
Yeah,
So
that's
whereas
water,
it does
wastewater.
water and wastewater, but
Water,
not-
wastewater, and there's
Thank you.
at least one other item too.
Yeah. Fire, of course.
Yeah, so propane is another one that we voluntarily follow this process for, but it's not regulatorily required. So with that, I'll hand it over to Brandy.
Well, thank you, everyone. Today we're planning to review the proposed rate structure. We're going to present new information since the April meeting, which includes some follow-up items identified at the last meeting. We're going to review the long-term debt strategy and the rate impacts, and then we'll receive and review public comment. So here we have just a reminder of the schedule. Today's the 5th month of rate study presentations at the board meetings. One more to go. So in June, we'll have the final review and possible approval of the rate study. And if approved, the new rates go into effect July 1st. So the proposed rate structure, we talked a lot about EDU definition, and having that be usage independent. One of the reasons that having an EDU, a base rate, a fixed rate, usage dependent, is because it creates inequalities when you have people who change ownership of their house, people who become more or less than they did previously. So one of the goals for this rate study is to make the residential base rate usage independent. It does not propose to change or make policy on the commercial residential revenue split. We are going to reassess that at every rate study. What we're proposing here is based on current splits. We'll talk about residential being homes, places where people live, and commercial being the remainder, our chairlifts, the PUD. Which is shown separately, but is included in the commercial bucket. Restaurants, snowmaking, HOA common areas, offices, the rec center, etc. And this rate study will look at the allocation across residents. So at previous meetings, the board has elected to go with Model B, which is amperage only. And what that does is it makes the base rate the same for every residential customer who has a 200 amp panel or lower, a standard size panel. And this is all but 2 of our residents. We do have some previous board decisions that we will review today, including property tax allocation, RPS percentages, and confirming that Model B, the amperage only, is what we would like to adopt. So another goal for our study is revenue neutrality. We are not seeking to raise rates to get more margin over our current costs. It is just a reallocation. Another goal for this study is to take the good things that we did in 2021 and keep those going. So in 2021, we adopted rates that the base rate covered 85% of our fixed cost. This was good. We want to keep this in the current rate study because our high fixed cost, because of the RUS loans, this allows us to meet those costs reliably without having to have emergency rate increases. We also have a rate that reflects 15% of our fixed cost in the usage rate. And this does provide some benefit and flexibility to customers because most of our customers, most of our residential customers have almost all of their cost in electric in their fixed base rate. So by not adding even more cost from the usage rate over there, they do get a little bit of flexibility there. And we also at the district have a margin, a small margin for sales above 6.8 million kilowatt hours, which is what we target for this rate study.
Randy, excuse the interruption. This is a public hearing, but I don't have how many people are on the Zoom? Just roughly, is it?
16.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so as I mentioned, the goal is to move from a usage-based EDU. The definition proposed in this rate study is a standard 200 amp service. This is consistent with what we do for water and wastewater, where one EDU is assigned per every residential dwelling unit. As part of the study, the TAC identified 32 employee housing units that were previously classified commercial, even though they serve a residential purpose, and reclassified those to residential. So the current breakdown of base revenue is 30% residential and 70% commercial, made up of the commercial and KMPD line items here. So we'll talk a little bit more about this split. A couple of slides from now. Property tax allocations is something that is considered in this rate study. KMPUD is required by our RUS loan covenants to keep a positive margin. Now, historically, KMPUD utility rates have not covered all the revenue needed for non-cash items like depreciation. But because of our RUS covenants, we have to do that for electric. Since this is unique to electric, historically, the district has used property taxes to help fund the ratios. It was decided at an earlier meeting, these two highlighted lines here, $230,000 total of property taxes to be allocated to electric a year, with $180,000 going to base rates and $50,000 going to usage rates. This allows us to keep both of those rates lower than they would be otherwise. So a little bit more about the commercial residential EDU split, and this is a question that came up last time that we wanted to follow up on. So one of the things we looked at was whether Model B, in adopting a 1.16 EDU per resident, was unfairly shifting residential growth advantage to commercial and penalizing residents. So to analyze this, we looked at the actual EDU growth from 2021 to 2026 across all of our customers. And so actual EDU growth is either customers who did not have a fixed base rate yet and increased, or new customers. So the percentages for each category are, there was 5.4% growth in commercial and 2.2% growth in residential. The additional EDUs in residential are because of the reallocation of the 32 employee housing units. So the TAC believes it's appropriate to reclassify these units, but trying to be thorough, we looked at the impact of, well, what if we decided not to reclassify these units? And looking at that, 2021, the current proposed, we see a difference if we chose not to reallocate of 11 cents per residential meter per month, or less than 0.1%. So we continue to recommend that we do reclassify those units. And then a final note on commercial EDUs is currently, since we are not doing anything really with commercial EDUs and base rates, there are a few, 19 commercial accounts that remain at the 2021 minimum of 0.5 EDU. We are asking at this meeting that the board consider whether we should move that to the new residential minimum of 1.16. All right, now on to residential base rates. So our objectives for base rate allocation were, again, not to get more money from the residential class, to keep that neutral, but to come up with a simplified formula that's independent of total usage. We were shooting for equitable and fair. Two customers with similar properties should pay the same base rate. We want this to be aligned with cost, and we want 85% of our fixed costs to be captured in this base rate. Stable from year to year, so that customers, when they join our system, know what to expect. It's not a recalculation year over year. And because we do see some changes for low EDU customers right now. We propose to change, phase in this change over 4 years. So this slide summarizes our Model B analysis. And Model B, we came to after trying numerous other models. We attempted to look at the characteristics of property types to see if there was a way to limit the impacts to customers. We looked at current users versus future users, and there are impacts no matter what we do. Model B was chosen by the TAC because of the simplicity of it and because of the fairness that if you have a standard size amp panel, there's no correlation between actual usage and panel size. And you can see that here because we have a customer with a fixed EDU of 0.5 who's currently using 1,100 kilowatt hours a month. We also have a fixed EDU customer who has a 6.2 EDU who's using about the same kilowatt hour per month. The fact that those two customers are paying such drastically different rates points to an issue that we're trying to resolve here. So the details for Model B are that in order to spread the cost across the residential rate, in 2021 EDUs, 1.16 EDUs per resident are assigned. And this represents the actual cost of grid connection. It doesn't increase overall revenue from residential, but it shifts the cost around. And you can see in the table here to the right what those shifts look like. So the top line there, we've got 32 customers who are having a fairly dramatic decrease. And you have at the next to the last line, one customer who's seeing a very large increase. But note that the 223 customers who are seeing a 0.56 to 0.66 increase, that's very similar to the very small amount of customers who are saving a lot, including this, 6.2 EDU customer. As we continue to pay down debt, because that's why our rates are so high here. Our base rates are driven by how high our debt is for the out valley line. And everyone, regardless of their current usage of the system, benefits from that. As we continue to pay down debt, we can reduce these base rates across the board. This is just an overview of where we are in principal and interest and where we get over the next 10 years. So when I was looking out at debt pay down, I looked over the next 2 rate studies. As we are able to pay down debt, we will be able to lower rates.
So what you and I worked on was you look at the actual RUS payments for the next 5 years, and we will generate enough cash from customer payments to cover the cash, because the amortization depreciation is
I have a proxy.
it's a proxy, but the real guarantee was looking at so we will generate the cash at least for the next 5 years to make our P&I payments.
We will. And so even though the blue line here is kind of peaks and valleys, we are proposing rates that cover those. Agreed. So commercial base rates in our plan here, including KMPUD, are proposed to stay the same allocation for existing customers. Commercial customers have a stable usage history. The ownership has been stable. But for new commercial customers, those will be based on a non-usage based capacity model. And we do have information from some planned new commercial meters, including EV chargers, Caltrans Peddler Hill, and EI at Silver Lake. Now, the timing on any of those installations is very uncertain. But all of these folks have expressed interest, so we hope that we will see those within the rate study period.
Randy, for clarification, we're saying not only, what we're saying here is that the residential to commercial split will stay as it is. That's what this slide is saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so that, as we saw on another slide, is about 57% commercial plus KMPUD internal use, and that's 30% left for residential. So it's essentially 70-30
That's right.
commercial to residential.
That's right. And further, within commercial itself, we are not doing the recategorization that we're proposing for residential. So for new commercial meters, we have worked with Nugent Strategies, who's our rate consultant, to develop a KVA capacity billing determinant. So not usage-based, and it will be scaled to ensure consistency with our existing commercial customers. So what that means is if we have a new commercial customer who comes on that's identical to an existing commercial customer, they will pay the same base rate. We would only get more revenue from commercial if new meters are added. So if we do get some of those proposed users online, there would be more revenue coming in from commercial. And then the last thing is we talked about having an interruptible rate class for commercial meters for two reasons. One is if we're on powerhouse generators, we can't backfeed to the grid. So we could not serve the out valley customers. But also if we are in a limited supply situation, winter time, we're running on powerhouse generators, we might not be able to serve new loads. In consultation with our rate consultant, this is already covered in the in-valley electric propane rules and regulations, covers apportionment if we have a shortage of supply. And out valley is already governed by the PG&E interconnection agreement. So it was decided that no new rate class needs to be added here. So I was mentioning Nugent Strategies and Solutions. They were very helpful in our process. And we have online here Max Burnt from Nugent. He's available to answer any questions after the presentation. I've kind of hit some high level points here on this slide. Their report explains some differences in utility basis and cash basis for setting rates. And it notes that our proposed rates are aligned. It also identifies some recommended changes and the timing of those changes. The first of those is something that the board also noted, and members of the public also, that O&M contract services, operating expenses, and the RUS margin could be reclassified to fixed cost rather than usage. At this time, we have not recommended making that change because having some of those costs built into our usage rate, like we said earlier, has a couple of advantages, some flexibility for customers, but also an increase in margin if we sell more than 4.8 million. This can,
6.8.
I'm sorry, 6.8 million. Thank you. This can be done over time, and we do look at the impacts of that in a minute. And they also recommend that we review the KVA billing determinant for existing commercial customers to make sure at the next rate study, if any realignment within the commercial class needs to be done, that we're able to do that at this time. Expense allocation. So this slide shows the expense allocation used in the rate study. It separates it into meter charges, base rates, and usage rates. And on the right, under usage rate, you can see the 4 categories that have been identified as potential areas to reclassify in the future. And the TAC proposes reviewing this at each rate study and if desired, aligning these over time. If we look here, we can see what goes into our usage rate. The expense allocation on the previous slide was used to come up with this usage rate of 21 cents a kilowatt hour. That's lower than our current usage rate of 24 cents a kilowatt hour. And the savings are due to favorable hedge. We were able to get a lower cost pre-purchase of a portion of our power. We were reducing RECs to the RPS minimum from 100%. And most of the rest of the expenses were held stable over the last 5 years. This is based on selling 6.8 million kilowatt hours. Over that number, we see a margin of 9 cents a kilowatt hour, which can be used at the board's discretion to pay down additional debt. And similarly, this slide shows the meter charges, base rates, along with the usage rate. And you'll see here 2 lines. Second line showing the monthly base rate per 2021 EDU, and that's included for comparison purposes. So you can see where we are right now and where we propose to go. And then the 2026 EDU for residential, which is 1.16 times low. We do note here that we are including a CPI, but only on the non-fixed expenses. We estimated 3% here for this table and the rate study, but actual will be used. And you see over the course of the 5-year study here, we're expecting to see meter and usage charges stay flat, while 2% increase is expected in the base rate over the entire 5-year period. The 5-year capital plan, as John mentioned, we did look to make sure that our rates that we're proposing not only include the ability to pay off debt as scheduled, but also our capital plans. It's a minimal impact on the base rates, and it has been included. This slide shows kind of where we've come from. We started at the beginning of the last rate study, or in 2019, at the height of our debt. This was right after the PG&E negotiations that allowed us not to own the 115 kV line. And we've been paying down debt since. And you can see we've made some progress. We continue to make progress as we go forward to the next, 2 rate studies, 10 years. We currently have principal outstanding about $43 million. So still a lot of money in debt. This is the driver for our rates. But on a positive note, we are making progress. What we did here is we looked at the impacts over the next 2 rate studies of paying down debt, so reducing our interest, plus reclassifying those 4 categories of expenses as we identify. With today's data and using the projections, we see about a 3.5% drop in base rates over the next 2 rate studies. The board could decide at either of the next 2 rate studies not to reclassify these expenses from usage rate to base rate. If we chose to do that to maintain a margin in usage rate, you would see this base rate drop faster. So that's our review. In your packet, we have put together a draft rate study report, and all of this information is in that report. I'm hoping for any board or public feedback on that report. Our plan is to review, incorporate the comments that the board directs us to into a final report that will bring back next board meeting. We have a couple of decisions here for the board. What those are which public comments should be included in the final report, confirm that there are no changes from the prior meetings on expense allocations, property tax allocations, rec levels, rates, EDU allocations. Tell us what board feedback should be incorporated into the final report. And then finally, should new commercial base rate minimum match the residential at the 1.16 EDU? And should that be applied to existing commercial customers, the 19 that exist right now and have a lower than 1.16 EDU base rate? And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Brandy. Can you promote me real quickly again? I got off and went to closed session, just so I can see hands. Okay, so thank you, Brandy. So this will be a great time for us to now move over to the public comment portion of the hearing. We do have a couple of written comments that came in the packet. I want to read those and then we'll address them. And then we'll do, hands up and on Zoom and in the room, of course, as well. Okay, so this is, got a little time like we did in the last one. This is now the public comment period. And again, after this, we will have closed public comments once with the, we don't hear anything else. And then we will have board discussion and address maybe some of the comments that or questions that Brandy just said. So I'm looking now at the board packet on page 88, where we have one question that says, asking about the Timber Ridge HOA and seeking information and impact on the rate changes. So one, does this change our HOA's KMPD does this change impact our HOA's KMPD accounts? We don't know if the HOA's KMPD accounts are considered residential or something else. And then two, what is the change? So do you want to talk about both of those?
Sure thing. So HOA common areas are considered commercial. And we did respond to this customer. A member of the HOA board, we provided them each of the individual notices and a summary of all of the HOA notices. Those were originally sent to their billing.
Right.
So, but that has been addressed.
Great, thank you. All right, so then our next comments from Peter Watkins. There are a number of items and bullet points in here. So Brandy, what I was thinking we could do is go one by one and then stop and then maybe address comments on each one. So it says, I strongly oppose the proposed shift to a largely fixed monthly charge that is no longer tied to actual electricity usage. Number one, rates should be tied to actual usage. Electricity is a metered service and costs should correspond to the number of kilowatt hours consumed. The proposed structure moves in the opposite direction by increasing fixed charges while lowering the marginal cost of electricity. This creates a perverse incentive to use more electricity rather than less, which is just difficult to justify from either an economic or policy standpoint.
So a couple of things here. There is in our proposal, there is no shifting from usage rate cost to the base rate cost. We're proposing to keep the same allocation. Now, individual residential customers may see higher or lower rates in their fixed cost because of the shifting around within the class, but we are not able to lower usage rates by 3 cents a kilowatt hour because we put that money into base rates. That was just fortunate timing of our hedge at a lower cost and the decision to lower our REC purchases to the RPS minimum. So while in an ideal world, basing it just on kilowatt hours would be really simple. Unfortunately, in our case, we have extremely high fixed cost, and that does not allow us to operate. We have to have high revenue coming in from fixed sources. Otherwise, we would need emergency rate increases from time to time because we aren't bringing in enough money to make our loan.
Yeah. And I would also just say, I think, and this was in the report by the consultant, is that aligning our revenue collection with the costs that we have is a priority, and our costs are fixed. And in fact, we could go lower, as what you said on a couple slides ago. We could actually, in that philosophical perspective, we could actually have the kilowatt hour rate lower than it is today, than what we're proposing. Okay, number two, this proposal creates unfair cross subsidies between customers. A largely fixed charge means that low usage customers, such as part-time residents or those who conserve energy, will effectively subsidize higher usage customers. Those who use more electricity will pay a lower effective cost per kilowatt hour, while those who use less will pay more. This is difficult to justify as equitable in a small community where usage patterns vary significantly.
And it's because usage patterns vary significantly that having your fixed cost based on current or historic usage doesn't make a lot of sense. Just because a customer has low usage right now or high usage right now doesn't mean 5 years from now that will be the same. They could sell their place, they could change their usage patterns. So that's why we were really focusing on trying to get away from a usage-based EDU. And this proposal shows the value or the cost of a grid connection.
Yeah. And I'll also just note that a lot of this is coming to ability to serve. Your ability to serve is independent of how many kilowatt hours you use, which is what's tied to that fixed rate. And so, if we put, 6 years ago, it was 68 cents a kilowatt hour. And so people who did not use many kilowatt hours were getting the ability to turn on their light switch for basically for free. So people who were using many kilowatt hours were heavily subsidizing the privilege of having the ability to serve those customers in a way. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind in terms of that balance of alignment of fixed cost ability to serve with the kilowatt hour usage.
I do want to add one thing to this is the direction we're going in is having the fixed rate be based on capacity. So in the case of commercial customers, the capacity formula that we're working with is amps times volts times the square root of the phase, whether it's 2-phase or 3-phase. Maybe someone in the audience can explain why it's the square root, but I'm delighted to have it divided by amperage. And so for large demand customers, that reflects what their capacity is and it aligns well. But we could find no alignment across residential customers with respect to how they're connected. So we felt that 200 amps or below, their capacity is pretty much the same in practice.
And I will also say we looked at like usage patterns of like full-time residents versus not, and there's no correlation really between usage and residence days and things like that. And it's all over the place in terms of how that can play out. So it's not a good one-to-one mapping either for that. Okay. Number 3, the structure risks increasing long-term system costs. By lowering the marginal cost of electricity, the proposal encourages high overall consumption. Over time, increased demand can drive the need for additional infrastructure investment, raising the district's fixed costs and potentially leading to even higher fixed charges in the future. This creates a reinforcing cycle that works against long-term cost and rate stability.
In this case, for the district, increased consumption would be good. Our Owl Valley line was designed for a 10 megawatt capacity, and we're currently sitting at about 3.5. So we have room for growth there. We are making, in-valley changes as needed with growth in mind. So this is something that we hope to see growth because with the rates as we have them proposed right now, growth equals an extra 9 cents a kilowatt hour in margin for the district. So we might be having a different conversation 5 years from now if we see just a lot of build out and a lot of growth. But for right now, we have the capacity to see increased growth.
In other words, conservation is great. Just channel it all for propane and keep the lights on.
But in seriousness on conservation, for 20 years, electricity was, 50 to 70 cents. So if you didn't conserve then, you're probably not going.
How about you're in charge of your EVs?
Yeah, and now the main idea is, is electricity a better use than propane, et cetera? Is it better use than wood or whatever? That you can afford to make that decision, whereas otherwise you couldn't.
Yeah, but it's a good point. I mean, we have capacity on the Out Valley, but certainly in Valley, we have to be conscious of impacts of this. And, if we had massive EV charging and how we distribute that hook up to that's another on like connection fees is part of like how we could possibly pay for that. So it's not necessarily coming to customers en masse when that thing happens as well. So other things that we can consider.
Randy, isn't it true to put a number on it that we have 10 megawatt capacity in this interconnect line? And on our peak day, I don't know if that's Christmas or someday in the winter, we use roughly 30, maybe 40% of that at
Yeah.
peak.
That's correct.
So that's the degree to which we have headroom. And yeah,
Correct. Okay, number 4, the proposal undermines the rationale of the prior EDU system. The current EDU-based system is grounded in actual historical usage, providing a rationale of empirical basis for allocating fixed costs. The proposed change removes that foundation and replaces it with a flat allocation. It is no longer tied to observed consumption patterns. This undermines the system that was intentionally designed to balance fairness for cost recovery and usage-based allocation in a coherent way.
It does undermine the rationale of the previous system, and that is intentional.
Right.
The 2021 study was a first step towards writing our, rates, and it got more of our revenues coming in, excuse me, in fixed revenues. But removing that usage-based fixed component is a goal here.
I would just add to that one of our priorities was to be able to switch to this high fixed base rate, but have most customers see a similar cost in their annual bills, with the exception of the minimum moving up. And we thought that was a less disruptive way to start.
5
And
years
it-
ago, you mean?
Yeah. And as it turns out, we were partially right.
Mostly right.
Well, and we were advised by Severn Bornstein at the time, you really don't want to have usage be a component in your fixed rate, and he was mostly right. But it's where we are.
Agreed. Yeah, so I agree with the comment in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
We are
It's
undermining
true.
it purposefully, and
It's
so
true.
it's not unknown to us. We are doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Number 5, customers lose control of their bills. A higher fixed charge means a large proportion of the monthly bill is unavoidable. Customers lose the ability to meaningfully reduce these costs through conservation or efficiency measures. It reduces transparency and weakens the relationship between behavior and costs, which is a key feature of well-designed utility pricing.
So again, with the customers lose ability to meaningfully reduce cost, I agree with that. In terms of transparency, as the rate study and consultant point out, this is better aligning our cost. So it is transparent. It is just driven by the fact that our fixed costs are so incredibly high.
Now, I would also take the half full perspective of this, which is it gives you an even more stronger incentive to electrify, given that your fixed charges no longer vary based off of some
Exactly.
historical
That's
usage or things like that could change. And now it's on the margin, now 3 cents a kilowatt hour potentially, if potentially 3 cents a kilowatt hour cheaper to charge a car, electrify, and do more things with heat pumps and switching from propane or other fuel
true.
sources.
You don't have to wait 3 years.
You don't have to
get
wait 3
started.
years. And
Like some people
speaking of from personal experience, and I know others have as well, where you think about these things in a way that isn't aligned with our actual cost of service, which is what we're trying to do now. Number 7, frequent rate change structure changes undermine planning. Significant changes to rate structures every 5 years create uncertainty that makes it difficult for customers to make rational long-term decisions. Many of us make investments based on expected payback periods tied to energy costs. A lack of stability in rate design and discourages those investments and reduces confidence in future utility economics.
Before I go to that one, I think we skipped 6, which was.
Oh, I did. Sorry.
Efficiency.
Yeah, I did. Well, maybe let's do 6 because that's actually, I think, related to 7.
I think it is.
Yeah.
also.
Sorry, I scrolled too far. Proposal penalizes efficiency investments. Under the current structure, investments in efficiency such as improved appliances, installation, and other upgrades result in lower ongoing costs. The proposed structure weakens or eliminates that benefit by shifting more of the bill into a fixed charge that cannot be reduced through responsible behavior. This discourages the very efficiency investments that reduce overall system demand.
So this one's related to both the previous and the next point. Our proposal doesn't shift the cost for the overall customer base, because our savings is not due to shifting that to a fixed cost. So that's an important note I'm sorry, I keep repeating it, but it is an important note. But like I said, for number 5, efficiency, initiatives by individual customers will continue to be relatively low, even at 24 cents a kilowatt hour. Efficiency is not nearly as important in terms of dollars as it was when we were at 68 cents a kilowatt hour. So that is just because we needed to make this shift so that we can have sufficient revenues coming in fixed rates. On number 7 and the frequent rate structure, structure changes undermining planning. I agree with this one too. It is one of my goals here, and one of the tax goals is we want to make the system simpler so that people understand it and can use it as a long-term planning tool. We want to make sure that everyone can see as we pay down debt, which is driving all of these costs, everybody's base rates get lower. And then we're in a situation like we have with water and wastewater that, we have a simple, straightforward, based on our actual debt system.
Yeah, I think I will say one thing, Brandon, I appreciate your commenting of that we're not shifting costs, but I think if I would put myself in Mr. Watkins' shoes, the argument would be we could lower the base rate value to shift some to the kilowatt hour to maintain the kilowatt. Like we could have a lower dollar per base rate unit so that we do continue to charge 24 or higher cents. So I appreciate you're clarifying that, but I think this is an argument of usage versus fixed in a lot of this is what I'm reading these comments. And so in that spirit, the answer is we're trying to align our costs with our revenue collection. And so artificially moving fixed to variable is not in our best interest. So I just comment on that. And again, I agree with the comment very much on number 7. It pains me to have now in 6 years, essentially 3 different systems that we've had in place. I don't love it. The board in 5 years from now, I hope will be able to lean on this and continue it forward, but that's the board who's sitting here in 5 years will make that decision. All right, number 8, the proposal prioritizes revenue certainty over fairness. It is clear that a primary objective of this proposal is to increase revenue certainty by shifting more costs into fixed charges while understanding the importance of covering fixed infrastructure and debt service. Doing so, minimizing the portion of revenue tied to usage places undue burden on customers and weakens the connection. I think we've addressed this one, and I'll say again, the shift to moving more to fixed costs was actually done 5 years ago, not today. That is not being done. That's not anything different of like how much of this is fixed versus variable. And then number 9, the existing structure should be maintained. The current rate structure where the fixed charge is based on rolling average of prior usage strikes a reasonable balance between recovering fixed costs and maintaining connection between consumption and cost. It's a framework many of us have made investment decisions. Changing it now is disruptive and inequitable. I mean, I would just say I appreciate the comment, and I think we've addressed our rationale. And going back to number 7 there of rate change structures are not ideal, and I agree. And I understand that there might be some pain. 3 cents a kilowatt hour is really the difference that we're talking about here, in a lot of ways. And so hopefully that hasn't been overdue burden, but that's the idea of what we're trying to do. Did we miss anything? Okay. And then I see another comment that says, just a comment, I am opposed to the proposed changes, and it does not make sense. So that was not your public comment. Okay, those are our written comments. So if there's anyone in the room or any hands online, please raise your hand and then we'll promote you to speak. And anyone in the room, please, we'll put your hands up and we'll come up to the podium. I see one hand in the room. Trevor, go ahead. Please come up to the podium.
Hey, Trevor Pitek, 660 East Meadows. I'll be short because many of my comments have already been given. Thanks, Brandy, for being on top of the hedge. I'm very in this world of electricity, and the futures are already starting to rise with the upcoming summer and sort of political tension across the world. So a great idea to lock that in, and it saves everybody money in the district. So thank you for being on top of that. Thanks also for doing the residential versus commercial split analysis over time. I was nitpicking. I have a few questions about how it was done, but I think the overall message is pretty clear that things have been pretty stable and we're continuing on that trajectory. So thanks for calling that up. I also very much appreciate the discussion of all the points from Mr. Watkins' email. I agree with most things that were said there, and I just want to reiterate that from my perspective, I'm strongly in favor of the new rate plan. It's not perfect. I think we addressed some of the imperfections, but it seems a clear step forward to me to have the base rate independent of usage, which is what those fixed costs are. We have to pay the loans regardless of whether anybody purchases any power or not. And I don't think it makes sense to disincentivize using now this clean and cheap power that comes from the ISO grid by setting an artificially high usage rate. It is way better to be consuming that power than to be burning diesel in the powerhouse. Better for climate, better for local pollution, noise, reliability, all sorts of things. So this all seems moving in a great direction for me. And I think the only question that I had was kind of following up on this efficiency improvements are less valuable comment. And maybe do we want to incentivize transitioning from propane to electricity, which is that we still have this public benefits charge money outstanding. I don't know if this is the right time to think about it, but are there ways where we can sort of continue to incentivize efficiency improvements or otherwise mitigate some of these imperfections in what we're doing with some of that money?
It's a good comment, and
Yeah.
we should have brought it up. We have had and continue to have opportunities to have the PBC, which is 2.5, 2.25, something percent that we are required by state law to collect. But obviously, we can always consider how to better allocate or get them out in different ways.
Well, there's a lot of it that's been built up.
Yes, and
That's sitting there. And I also think for a new customer, it's now clear that you could consider that and it's not going to affect your fixed rate. So the probability of somebody doing it goes up if we make these changes.
And also mention that if there were concerns over low income or things like that, of any of these changes, that is something that is also available through the PBC funding as well. We have had customers apply and enroll, and so I would just encourage everyone to reach out to district staff if you have questions on that. It's on our website, but certainly reach out if you have any questions on any of these programs that we offer. Okay. And Trevor, thank you specifically. You've given lots of comments and been very valuable to the board and staff, I think. So thank you for all your work and working with us on to help improve this process. So thank you.
Yeah, hopefully you see your fingerprints on almost every page of the rate study. And we do appreciate it.
Very much so.
Although lots of
Yeah, there's some places where there's smudges instead of fingerprints. I understand.
It's been a good process.
Okay,
Thank you all
good.
for the engagement.
So that's all the hands I saw in the room here. I don't see anything online at this point. So I will give another 30 seconds here of, not 30 seconds, maybe actually less than that. I don't see any hands up. We'll get a couple seconds. While we wait, I'll just, one note is that during our 218 processes, it's like a majority opposition that we think about. And so in that case, that can override any vote of the board on these sorts of things to approve it or not. And in this case, we need about over 300 no votes to kind of follow that same logic. And I would consider that we've received about less than 5 at this point.
One,
Right.
2.
2 or 3 here, depending on how you want to count some of these. And so I think we're safely in the, from that perspective, in case we were wondering. So filling a little bit of time here. I still see no hands up, so my gavel will close the public comment portion of the hearing. And now we'll have board discussion. Brandy, do you want to go back to the slide where I think you had some questions for us that we can maybe make sure that we talk through and discuss in more detail, please?
Page 46, yeah.
So I'll let you maybe lead the questions so that we can then respond for you.
Okay. So first question is from the public hearing comments that we received in writing or in person. Is there anything specifically that the board would like to have included in the final draft?
Included, you mean like adjustments?
Adjustments made based on these comments.
No, I think we answered the questions that came in writing and I don't see the need for making changes to the draft.
Well, if there's anybody in rereading it, if you see anything in the draft that could be covered, that should be covered, that isn't in there, having it be a durable document that explains everything is really valuable. So it's worth the time to add stuff in if anybody identifies something that needs better clarification or
Between now
doesn't
and-
have any
Between now and next. board
next
meeting?
2 weeks.
I mean, the only thing I
Yeah.
don't remember it verbatim in reading the document, but if we talk about some of the energy efficiency and some of what you mentioned of reminding everyone about that this wasn't a shift and it was, but the reduction in the kilowatt hour proposal is its own thing, one. And two, we acknowledge some of the things in here, you know, including the adjustment to the rates and that we could codify in a, you know, more concrete document here, that our hope is that this structure is the one that will be built on from 5 years from now to help people, the board in 5 years, when they go back and read this rate study to remember what we did. Maybe that will be, I think those comments from Mr. Watkins would be helpful to include some of the discussion we had, just to
Okay.
memorialize that a little bit, to remind ourselves in a few years from now that we had this conversation.
All right, so the second one is just to confirm that there aren't any changes from the decisions made in prior meetings. So the expense allocation breakdown between meter charge, usage charge, base rate, the property tax allocation of $230,000 a year, rec levels at RPS required levels, and the Model B residential allocation. Just confirm that there are no changes to those decisions.
I guess I have a question on the Rex. You were able to come up with a lower per kilowatt rate because we stopped the process of 100% Rex.
Was
Was
just
it-
one factor, it was just part of it.
Yeah, I know.
That's a 1 cent, yeah.
But I'm saying, what are the, going forward, can that percentage be, can we be forced to raise that percentage?
We will be forced
Will be
to
forced.
raise it, but gradually.
So by 2030, right now, the RPS requirement is 52%. At 2030, which is the latest published RPS category, 60%. So it is increasing, but our analysis took those percentages and built them into this
Okay.
rate.
Just one other clarification, that we do get some of our power from WAPA now, which is large hydro, but doesn't count as part of renewable.
It doesn't, but it is carbon free, and so
Correct.
we did discuss how we could share that information with our customers.
Which will certainly come up when we look at our energy label. And we'll have a new line item there this year, which will be nice.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it actually will be a good opportunity. Okay, so I don't think, I don't hear any more, I don't see any changes then, Brandy, so let's go back to, I think the third bullet point here.
Third bullet point here is, does the board, upon their first review of the draft rate study, have any changes to incorporate? And if so, you can either give those here or you could send us comments, however. it's-
For anyone in the public that,
Yes, thank you.
We are now past public comment period.
well, I mean, going forward.
Going
if-
forward, yes.
If you spot something.
Please send an email to our.
We,
staff.
any corrections or suggestions in the next 2 weeks would be appreciated.
Yes. Agreed. Does anyone have any right now that they'd like to discuss, or? No? I didn't see anything myself, so, okay, go on.
And then the last one is on the minimum base rate for new commercial customers. Should we set that equal to residential customers? And for existing commercial customers, the 19 that are lower than the proposed residential base rate, should those be increased to equal the residential base rate?
Randy, I'm unclear on this whole point, and I'm on the committee, so it's embarrassing, but this is not just for new commercials that might but are unlikely to arrive anytime soon, but you're also now talking about existing commercial? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not sure. This isn't very clear here, so I apologize for that. So in our existing commercial set of customers, there are 19 of those small commercial customers who have a base rate. Since we're not changing commercial allocations, that would be lower than a residential base rate in the new study.
Lower
So,
than a residential base rate.
so there are,
They're less than one currently.
Oh,
So
Okay,
ignore the
They're between
1.16.
0.5 and 0.7.
Ignore the 1.16. Think of it as in our rate system that exists through July 1st, 0.5 is the minimum EDU.
yeah, oh, I see.
So do you want to change the minimum EDU
Yeah,
for commercial
yeah,
customers? It's irrelevant for residential.
Yeah.
So
I'm so accustomed to thinking of commercial as being a chairlift or a big building, but I remember stories
We
from
have
the past
we
that
have
there,
19 that are.
Yeah.
there's some itty bitty tiny like light.
The
light
Kirkwood
fixtures.
entrance sign is a
Yeah,
custom,
yeah, there
for
you go.
example.
Yeah,
so what's the dollar impact and what's?
It's 10 EDUs if they all were moved up to one,
so it's a couple thousand a year or a month,
across 17, across 19.
2,000 a month.
Sorry, say one more time, Bob.
There,
There are 19 customers who would get moved up. from
and that would
something
add a
less than
total of 10 EDUs.
And an EDU's 200.
100 something dollars.
EDUs $126 a month.
Okay, so
Well,
12
oh, this is old EDUs.
What?
yeah.
The old
Yes.
this is all in
Okay,
old
so
EDU units.
it's like
Yes.
35, 40,000 a month, it sounds like. Across, if it's 19 customers.
No,
No, it's 10 EDUs.
I think he means total, right?
Yeah,
Oh, 10 is total, sorry, yeah, of course.
yeah, it's
So
a
then it's
net
a-
change of 10
Oh,
EDUs.
then it's next to nothing.
Well, for those customers, it's not.
Well, if you're a utility, there's no such thing as next to nothing.
Thank you.
There's only something.
So
Are those other
Yeah.
10 customers, is that on deed restricted property?
deed restricted employee housing units, those are all residential.
residential.
They have
They
been
already are.
reclassified, so those are not
Okay.
affected here.
Yeah, these are shared HOA.
So it'd be about 60, so it's 10 times 126 divided by 19 ish per month.
Yeah. No, 126 is the month. Everything's in monthly rates.
It's $1,100.
It would be about $1,260.
I'm
month,
just trying to
sorry.
calculate the average impact
Per customer.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
$795 a year per customer average,
So much higher.
$795 a year,
Right, so
Yeah.
that's
Per
60,
customer.
yeah, so.
average.
Yeah, right,
And the
so that's kind of what I
customer is the
said.
Kirkwood sign.
So it's like 65. Yeah.
Any other,
I mean, this came up in public discussion last month, and I have a hard time arguing why a commercial connection
Yeah.
is at a discount to a residential one. If we were saying it's the value of being connected for electricity.
Yeah.
I have a hard time deciding why it's, I think it's a good point that I don't see why it's discounted except for an historic reason. It's not the dollar value though. It's not,
Well, I put it all, but
yeah.
do we phase it in? Do we, like, those are other things.
Everything is phased in. Any changes in EDUs, the difference between where they are and where they're going to end up
Okay.
is changed 25% a year for 4 years.
so
Yeah,
I agree that the inconsistency is hard to defend. And it sounds like it's about $700 a year per the 19 customers. Right?
yeah, they collectively pay 10 EDUs more a year.
I know,
Yeah.
but you think more in EDUs than,
I know.
What else is there? There's EDUs and there's,
I don't have any
cyber
of those in the
Okay.
wall.
So anyone opposed to moving to, I mean, is everyone in agreement that this is what we should do, is make them?
I favor that.
Yeah, I'd support them.
All right. I think there's consensus.
Yeah.
All right,
All
there's
right.
consensus on that.
Okay.
And then, so the way the bullet pointer is that says for new commercial, but is that for new and existing?
We will make it for new and existing.
Okay, so that's important note here, that existing customers and new customers would have this, not,
Yeah, the allocation based on capacity applies to new commercial.
right,
The minimum 1.16 applies to old
Oh.
and new.
right. That's why I wanted to clarify,
Okay.
because you would potentially not read it that way
Yeah.
as written in the slide.
Right,
Okay.
and the analysis of a capacity-based model will be presented at the next meeting.
Okay.
But it's based on the recommendation from the consultant.
And let me just ask, what's the, if we're scaling that capacity, let me say it this way. My fear or concern is that we now have two rate structures inside of commercial, essentially.
We're
Well, it's just
trying
for
to
the first
design
year.
it in a way that we could eventually just be only
Okay, that's
on
what I was trying to get
one.
to.
We're trying to match it as closely as we can.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so I guess
but
that,
otherwise we have there's 99 customers or meters, and there's a grandfather clause.
Sure.
In there, keeping them static and making sure that new ones are similar to what the old ones are.
so I guess
Yeah.
why not then just do everyone now? Like, what's the, other than just not having to deal with it? I
We don't
guess,
have all of the data. Talking with the rate consultant,
okay,
we could write into our rate study document that it's our intention to do this analysis over the rate study period and have that possibility at the next rate study.
I would encourage that. So that
The
we can.
committee does not know what the square root of 3 is.
1.7.
I would say 1.7. Why don't you know that? I can say it's like 8 repeating decimals.
Try the square root of 4. I'm
What's the
gonna
last
hit one too.
Hi.
It's the ratio, square root of 3 over square root of 2 or something.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
Arctangents and tangents and.
I think the point is for the commercial, it's the current system has generally worked out well. And so there's no urgent need to change it. We just want to make sure that we don't institutionalize it for additional customers, that we have a capacity-based plan.
Agreed.
Did I get that right? Yeah, okay.
And then that way, and I'd like to memorialize it so that it becomes our intention, like we've just said for
Yeah.
other things, that's in the.
And that's in the rate study, and it'll be refined
Yeah.
for the next meeting.
Okay, anything else? Hey, Brandy, does the staff need anything else from the board at this time?
No, I don't think so.
I think we're set.
Got it.
All right, well then, I will just say thank you to public comments. We've had some very involved, community members. We've had some really thoughtful comments, and I really appreciate everyone participating in this process. And to the staff, of course, for all the work that they've done to lead this effort with our TAC, Chris and Bob. Thank you for all the work everyone's done to get this. And then just again, to remind everyone of the timelines, June, we would come back to this for a board vote to officially adopt the rate study. And then that would go effective July 1st this year.
I'll offer one comment before we close on the item, and that is that I can only speak for myself, but maybe the committee, the TAC feels the same way. Biggest concern as we implement this is the very small users who go from 0.5 to 1.0, who may not be paying attention or dialing into our meetings right now, but when they get their first bill or 3, will see quite a change. Some of us have gotten calls from a couple of owners in particular. I mean, these ones might be in small condos, small dense condos, but Bob always points out that usage can vary no matter what the residence type. People who are at a low 0.5 EDU and therefore a low base rate will see several hundred, well, is it several hundred a
Well, they'll
month?
see $20 a month is the immediate change.
Right. Over now.
At first,
And
because
then,
it's
and then
phased.
it'll be
Yeah.
another 20
Yeah,
a year
yeah.
from now, and another, yeah.
Right.
So the shock is spread out, and the
Yeah.
people who are saving money won't save it all up
Yeah.
front.
And anecdotally, I've heard from 3-4 people who are, again, pleasantly surprised, like 5 years ago, that somehow, despite a very different methodology, in their letter, because we sent letters to every residential customer with exactly what their rate would be, somehow it's very, very close. The disruption in these few anecdotal cases is very small. So that was a goal.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone again for all the time and thought on this. We'll close agenda item 10A. We'll move on to agenda item 10B. Agenda item 10B is the general manager contract. So there are a lot of items in the board packet here. So Brandy, if you want to go to page 91, that would be great. So this agenda topic is related to our last board meeting. where we announced that our current general manager, Rick Ansel, had given notice of his retirement from service effective September 4th, 2026. And so John Schroeder and I appointed us as the labor negotiators, and we were tasked with going forward and considering options for board consideration to fill the position of general manager. What you can see in the overview document here is the process that we went through. And I will talk through it in a high level, and we can ask questions and follow up here from anyone who has it in the public with the board. But we met with, I should say, we followed this very similar process about 9 months ago or so when we went through this when Eric left and we filled the position with Rick, where we interviewed our staff here. We considered options external. When we talked to Rick, Brandy, Terry, Amanda, and John, everyone was very thoughtful and giving comments. We had strong support for the recommendation that we have. We considered an external search, but we did not conduct it, given the opinion of the labor negotiators of the option that we've given here. The salary information, we've maintained the same salary that we have today. We used external sources to look at this. Given our consulting work earlier, we knew what the ranges were, especially if we were to go out and look for it publicly. All of this to say, the labor negotiators came back and are enthusiastically recommending that our current operations manager, Brandy Benson, be promoted into the general manager position. And so we put some other recommendations in here in terms of how this would work out, including working closely with Rick over the next few months that they're both going to be here to help with the transition. It gives us some time. It also gives staff the ability to potentially fill the operations manager position that gets opened up by her departure, and allows us to continue to think about how we go forward, with a contract here. But I will just say everyone we spoke to was very enthusiastic to have Brandy's leadership come on in September. I think as a board, we've been really grateful to work with you, Brandy. You've demonstrated a lot of that in this last rate study that we just talked about in 10A, and you've really stepped in a lot of ways. So overall, we're just all very enthusiastic to offer this as the labor negotiators' recommendation to the board. And so I'll stop there and open it up for any questions. Or just, John, I said anything that you
You did it all.
Okay. Any questions from the public here on this? Okay. Don't see any hands up. Board questions or comments?
I'll just add in that I've worked with Brandy for at least 12 years, and I'm very confident in her capability.
Agreed.
I've worked with Brandy for at least 12 months, and I feel the same. I feel the same. Had the pleasure to watch her work on the TAC. John, your comment earlier was good though about the depth of, I don't know if it's worth repeating or.
Yeah, I think we 100% confidence here. This was really an easy decision or easy recommendation, I should say. I think we got to keep building the talent within the district. We had when we had Eric and Rick and Brandy, we said, well, if Eric isn't here, we have Rick and Brandy, and then we had Rick and Brandy, and if Rick wasn't here, we had Brandy. And so we need to build the bench with Amanda, John Campbell, other people like that. You have bolstered up finance already with the use of an outside consultant, so that's in better shape already. But we want to keep an eye on that and make sure we're adequately funded too in personnel, make sure we can bring in the required talent.
Okay, I see a hand up. If you want to talk. Caroline, unmute yourself, please. And
hi, this is Carolyn Scott. I've watched Brandy since she first worked for the PUD. I'm thrilled that you've decided this. I think she's been great. I've been in every meeting possible. I followed her intelligence, her speaking ability, her thoroughness. I think it's a great decision.
thank you for that comment, Caroline. Appreciate it. Okay. Again, this is a contract which is in here. You can, if you want to scroll down, I will also acknowledge that in the portfolio of documents that are coming with this agreement, Brandy voluntarily noted a potential conflict of interest. And then she also voluntarily included it in the board packet. It wasn't required for her to do that, but you're welcome to read it. It has to do with her relationship with someone that the district hires, and we have a remediation plan in effect here so that there wouldn't be any observed conflict. And I just want to say thank you for acknowledging that. We do, we really try to be as transparent as we can here within HR guidelines. And so I just want to make sure everyone understands that that was in there, and the reason for that. I'm not concerned about it. And so I'm very confident that this will be a successful term that we could have with Brandy effective September 4th, 2026. So with that, let's take a vote. There's no other comment?
No,
A motion, or I guess we need a motion.
we need a motion.
If there is a motion.
Yeah, I'll move that we accept the agreement
Okay.
that's been proposed.
I'll second.
John seconds. Okay. All in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Randy, we're looking forward to working with you. And I think I said this before, but I see our job as a board, first and foremost, to make you successful in your new role. And so please lean on us in any way we can. That is our goal, is to see you be successful in your new role. So we're looking forward to that. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move on to agenda item 10C. This is the FY 2026-27 draft budget assumptions. Amanda.
All right, thank you, everyone. You will see that this assumption layout is similar to what we've produced in previous years and is largely unchanged. We did note on page 3, section 5, under rates electric. It was brought up in finance that we should update this portion for hedge pricing to reflect what we have just entered into with our new contract. That is being addressed and presented at the next finance meeting. And then moving forward. Item number 7, salaries and wages, was discussed in finance as well. This is being analyzed by staff, and we agree that it would be prudent to add margin there for additional hiring if needed. That will be presented to finance in the next meeting and then come back to board. In this budget, the board's decision to refinance loan B83 and pay off loan B88 has been included with as much data as we presently have, knowing that we don't have those interest rates on hand until that time.
I do have one question related to that. It's trying to move us all so we don't have to wait till the end of June to know what the CPI is. So, since all of the rate studies base it on information through March 31st, could we just say that that's the date for determining CPI as well? Then we don't end up finishing this in multiple steps.
It would also make it consistent.
Yeah.
Which I actually was a comment that I was going to ask in a minute, but like the snow removal on 5.8 is like 3.5% in CPI and stuff. But did we just say 3% in the electric?
We did say 3% in the electric.
Okay, but we're in the budget 3.5.
3% as the estimate, but we
But
base it on
based
the
on that.
actuals.
Okay.
And then on page 111, page 7 of this document, item 13, for the USDA Rust wastewater treatment plant repair and rehabilitation project, it's worth noting in the budget, an amortization schedule has not yet been provided to KMPUD, so those numbers are not reflected here. As soon as we have that, that will be updated, presented to finance, and then brought back to the board.
That's item number what? I'm sorry.
That's item number 13 in this document.
Okay, yeah.
Just a small note that I think that should be 11 on the template.
Before we move on to the numbers themselves, if now's just, I'll be brief, but this assumptions document, a couple questions. So G&A allocations, if I don't remember them for years and years, but I have the sense that they are static, that they don't really ever move. It's always about just over 20% for gas and electric and 17 or 18 for water and wastewater. And is it right to do that? And is it worth the trouble to maybe once a year
Well,
change
we
them?
have changed it from
Have
time
we?
to
Am I
time.
wrong
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, if the actual cost, if the actual overhead of G&A changes, then we shift it. So for example, on snow removal, when we eliminated the need to do driveway things, that reduced the overhead of G&A and it reduced that percentage. So if there's an actual change in
I'm
the
thinking
expected,
along, like, for example, I'm just assuming with the wastewater treatment plant project over the last couple of years, where I'm just assuming it must have taken up a lot of time for the admin team. And then that project is sort of over. Of course, it's never over, but then that kind of subsides, and electric may have its ups and downs. And do we alter the allocation splits year to year on that
it's
basis?
based on the durable cost, not one-time changes.
We say that, I mean, I think we say things that we do careful tracking of time spent and all of that in order to determine these splits.
It's
But-
worth notating, Chris, that the expenses relative to the wastewater treatment plant project have posted to a construction work in progress account specifically, and they will all be captured and depreciated. They all live there, including salaries and wages and time spent by staff. So that
Yeah.
is not
Okay,
planned.
it may, I mean, maybe this is just too much in the weeds,
Is your
but
question basically, it's weird that it's year over year identical?
it never changes. And yet I'm sure that the amount of time that the whole team needs to spend, the administrative team has to spend varies based on whether we're rebuilding a treatment plant or, doing a big rate study or whatever, but
But then we'd have to go back and redo everybody's rates. I mean, so many things are interdependent on that. If there isn't some stability to it
Okay.
and some common estimate, it would be very disruptive to
Uh-huh.
have it be based on timesheets from the previous period or something like that. And you'd have to say for the board, what percentage of our time was
Yeah,
spent
I
on
know, right.
A or B. I think it's a level of sometimes you can have incredible accuracy, but
No meaning,
but no meaning.
right.
I
Okay,
would worry
let's
that
assume
it
that's
would
the
move in
case.
that direction.
The document itself, I mean, it serves its purpose for insiders. I mean, staff and I've even come along to know what we're saying here, but it's not it does feel like it might be just year after year and have lost some of its accuracy. So for example, just the way it gets started by talking about government funds versus enterprise funds, why do we call it a fund? Is G&A really a fund? We make a statement about government funds being property tax supported and the enterprise funds essentially not. And then we show a chart that displays the opposite. We show that indeed some of our core utilities do get prop tax. So it's just to beg the question, if this is supposed to be more of a narrative for everyone to, for the community to understand, it might be worth a bit of an update. And, I'm willing to help with that, or the comms committee could help with that. Or maybe we just say, no, it serves its purpose, leave it alone.
No, originally, when we wrote this the first time, is because looking at the spreadsheets didn't give you any real insight into what was going on. So the goal of this was to write a narrative that explains things. If
But
there are
who's
suggestions.
Who's the target for the narrative? Who's the audience?
I'm going to avoid the question by saying anyone who reads it. I know I'm avoiding your question.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
The
there's-
broader
there's
the
work-
audience-
there's a working staff and board that are trying to figure out the budget for next year, right?
Yeah,
And then there's a general narrative of how our
Yeah.
expenses allocated at CAMPUD that might be a narrative for the public, right?
yeah.
And
It should be accessible by the public to,
accessible, it's
understand.
the scope of content, right?
well,
Is
there
the
are
question.
going to be assumptions of knowledge built in, and
Yeah.
the more you overcome that, the better.
I I don't
But
want to.
I thought I heard a volunteer to make some
Right.
suggestions.
Yeah, I
Go
am,
for it.
Also
and,
use
uh,
AI.
Yeah,
I am, I wouldn't dump that on you, but I also don't
well,
want to.
I wouldn't accept
I
that.
don't want.
So look,
We will
look,
need to
okay.
recruit, we'll need to
All right.
recruit an illustrator because I want this to be a picture book. And, no,
If there's ways of making it less assumptions
yeah.
about things or language.
Okay, we'll give it some
That's,
thought.
that's always good.
Well,
We could send you a document that you could make suggestions on so that
Yeah.
you have those. We'd be happy to incorporate.
I mean, just as an example, later in the document, when it gets to CapEx, there is a narrative like that starts off, this is the CapEx for the year. We don't do that for OpEx. And
Sure.
then for all of the funds.
Yeah, it could be
so
improved.
yes, I will say we have an FAQ set of documents that we spent a lot of time on. So incorporating or referencing or allocating to that would be a useful thing.
Understanding the
do that.
budget.
That would be a place where I think would be a valuable thing to do it. If you could put that document and reference this one, or you could change it, whatever you want to do. But I would say we spend all the time in FAQs, and we can keep directing people to those, and I think that'd be a useful thing to do. But that's that end. One comment I do have is I think that column that says receive property tax is actually not correct in the sense that water and wastewater no longer do receive. So I would change this to say something more like eligible to receive taxes, and then
Oh, yeah.
highlight the ones that currently do, or something like that.
Yeah.
Just as again, small thing as as
Times change.
times change,
Yeah.
things do change.
That's good. I have two small corrections. On page 100 and page 3 of the document, 107 of the board packet. It says under electric 0.1, base rate fixed costs are projected to grow by CPI. It's only the non-debt service fixed costs. And then on two pages later, on page 109 of the packet, or page 5 of this, it says second, it covers the volunteer fire department, but it also covers any enterprise department without revenues. So like Parks and Rec.
Yes.
So it either needs to be a little broader or just list, we don't have that many departments, list them. Those are the two things I noticed.
One of the basic things that a budget document or budget assumptions would state is our expectations of growth. Am I right that the only place we talk to that is through the language of EDU? There is a bullet that says EDUs will have grown 1% and they'll keep growing 1%. Is there another place where we talk about like demand growth, housing growth, number of meters? Okay,
Not that I'm aware of.
No,
well, there's the one about EDU and
yeah, that's about it.
oh,
And even that is a wildly optimistic estimate.
although haven't we said that the number of meters has grown about, was it 4 or 5% over the last few years? Maybe that's there's some, okay, forget it. In all the utilities, we use a 5-year average. But is it sometimes the case that, I mean, if there's what's the point of using a 5-year average if there is a trend you can see? If things are going up, and in electric, for example, it went up, it came down a bit, but I mean, at 7.2 million kilowatt hours, we're significantly above the 6.5 that I think we were pre-COVID.
We'll
And-
probably end up 6.5 this year.
Yeah.
I think the goal of 5-year average is we're totally dependent on the quality of skiing.
Yeah,
And that trend is not just one directional.
yeah, it's not
Right?
linear.
This year was really poor
Yeah.
for skier days.
Okay,
So I think it's just to try to average out what we expect from the weather pattern,
Yeah,
which over 100 years may not be good.
an average, even if it's a trend, averages will go up if there's a trend still too. It's not like that.
Yeah, it will catch
if
it.
you're
Yeah.
setting next
It's a-
year based on an average from last year and it's going up, that's
Sure, of course, but like your average, yes, if
okay. Enough said. We can move to the numbers.
I think, yeah. Okay, any other comments on the budget assumptions? I think there are a couple of small changes to make there then you've documented, right? Great, thank you. Anything else? Okay, if not, we'll move on to 10D, which is the FY 26-27 draft operating budget.
All right, a few caveats before we get started. In the enterprise funds, you will notice that the bottom section outlining the cash accounts is still in development. This has been reformatted from previous budgets to tie in with CapEx in a way that is more straightforward and transparent.
I'm sorry, where will be enterprise funds?
On enterprise funds, so we'll see this on like water, wastewater, electric, on the bottom section. You won't see it here. On this, you'll see it there on screen.
Oh, okay, yeah, so. Right, I'm familiar with that. One thing we don't have this year, I think we used to have all the time were like unit volumes, like electric used to have kilowatt hour projections on the page, and now we don't.
We have done some reformatting of the budget, Excel sheets.
I think I brought that up in finance, so sorry to be
So
repetitive.
we do have, we are still tracking units sold. That's something that we can.
Of course.
And then another caveat before we get started, you will see that G&A allocations are lower overall throughout this draft. That is largely driven by a lower expected expense in salaries and wages. We are looking at that number at the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
It's back to the depth question, though. I mean, we eliminated a position, an assistant manager, right?
That is largely attributing to
Yeah.
that change. There's also the relevant portion of retirement contributions as we lose depth. Those change with newer employees. Right, on the general and administration budget, were there any questions here on the draft?
Do the base rates exactly match the EDUs that we currently have? Or would that be worth a volunteer checking
Which fund?
for any of the utilities? Just verifying that the base rate is exactly the rate times the number of EDUs that we have in July, expect to have in July.
We can look into that.
Yeah, I'd like to see that because we always end up with little variances.
Yeah, we end up with
I don't-
strange variances, and it's usually because there was a problem in the past and we've averaged it in. But in the case of base rates, they should be close to exact.
Okay.
You like all voluntary, verify, check them.
Another point I raised in finance a couple weeks ago was that we have the budget. You know, when you look at the budget for 27 and the future, you say, okay, well, how does that compare to how we are now? And the closest we have to how we are now is budget 26. And there are some big discrepancies in individual line items from that. So my question 2 weeks ago was, could we put a column in of projected, forecasted, which would be the 7 or 8, 9 months actual, and then what we think the year is going to end. So we have the best possible anchor for FY26. That would be helpful.
Yeah, that's something that we're prepared to bring forward in the next finance meeting.
That the timing, thank you. Yeah.
That is built into the notes that I have here already. As of the time of the last finance meeting, when we presented this, we only had actuals through February.
Right.
The next time we present this, we'll have actuals through March and be able to present a more clear picture of where we are for this fiscal year.
Good.
Moving on to fire department fund. Were there any questions here?
Just wondering, was this budget based off of the assessment that we just did not pass?
It was not, because it was in progress at the time that this was developed, and you'll see this also in electric. The electric budget draft is taking into account the 2021 electric rate study because it has not been approved. There's no change approved yet.
So
So this does not take into account that 218 process passing.
So the bump to property tax allocation to 280 to 450.
And it should be to 480. That was notated in finance and will be
Yeah, I
corrected.
would say 480 was the number that we had before. Okay, thank you.
Randy, do we still have a large number of attendants on Zoom?
Where's the
I mean,
property tax? Apparently?
Very last
We
draft.
have 13.
Oh, only there. Okay. It says
Thank
not
you.
considered revenue.
I guess not.
Okay.
I don't know why.
The budget year is the start of the fiscal year, the number?
20.
No, it's the end,
The end.
at the end.
It's the-
I may eventually learn that.
I will say that in general, like we should be common in our nomenclature. Like when we write FY26/27, we should just say FY27
Yeah.
and be consistent in nomenclature so that we don't FY refers to,
Yeah.
when it's not a calendar year, it should refer to the end of
It's
this.
just
The reason why I overruled you in that is because somebody who didn't know that
I understand.
wouldn't
You
read.
did overrule me on that, but
Yeah,
I will.
I'm prepared to do it again.
I'm
But
prepared to say it
Either
again.
that or
Where's that
I
big
think
gavel you
Brandy
said?
had
Yeah,
a
where's my gavel?
suggestion of saying YE at the end, so year ending. As a reminder. But the number by itself.
We can always put a footnote or something, or FAQ can note it as well.
All right.
FY 27.
FY 27 is what we should be talking about right now.
Before the next rate study, we'll resolve this discrepancy.
Moving on from fire, any questions on Parks and Recs?
Let's get to the big stuff first.
Absolutely.
Jeez.
All right, and then water fund is the next and the first enterprise fund we're looking at, where we're seeing that bottom section that's been redeveloped. It is still in development. And I will go ahead and disclose, you'll see at the bottom and the CapEx line in the new debt area. Those numbers represent had we not received the waiver for the manganese. But this will be updated. But this section is still in development to tie into the capital plan. Any other questions on water?
Remind us, please, why usage. There's a big shift in usage. Commercial drops, residential rises by 50%.
This budget's assuming a 70-30 split between residential and commercial. The total budgeted sales overall is increasing by 31,000.
Yeah.
And another reason for the difference in here is that the budget in 2026 was produced during the last wastewater rate study. And so the numbers that you see in the 2026 column were approved prior to the closing of that. The budget 2027 numbers, we have that rate study closed and in effect, and it takes into account the new rate study.
And the same with wastewater.
Yeah.
We'll see that through the next.
Yeah, because the rate study was approved in October. Probably suboptimal to do it that way. And
I would agree.
Yeah.
It's nice if our rates go into effect on July 1st, like they're supposed to.
Moving on to wastewater, were there any questions here? Again, the bottom section still in development on this enterprise side. All right, employee housing. It's worth noting that we have added in the Meadowstone purchase and also the projection for the increase in rental income with near full capacity in employee housing.
Yeah.
Next, we have electric.
And this would need to be updated with the new rate structure once approved.
Yes, we did include some of the things that we do know. So we know changes for rec expenses. We know some changes for our power purchase expense. A few of those things have been updated. And then the bottom portion, this is a good snapshot of a completed section showing our operating cash revenue account and capital reserve account and the planned movement between these accounts.
And did you find an issue with depreciation amortization?
No.
So how does it drop year to year?
This is mainly dropping just due to items that are retiring off the list that have completed depreciation. But I can look at this a little closer with some. more
Yeah,
concrete
if you could look at
numbers.
that, just because it's a partial year at 1.9 and then a full year at 1.96 and a full year at 1.85. It's a pretty big drop, right? If you take if
Yeah,
you
it is.
annualize it.
And then again, this is mainly based on the prior approved rate study.
Yep.
But we will get this all updated once we have an approved rate study to work with.
I have a question about the diesel fuel line number. I know we can't really predict it, but that seems awfully generous of expected amount. I wouldn't change it, but do you agree that?
I agree.
And diesel doesn't
So
deteriorate, right? You
generous.
can keep it for a long period of time.
We don't like to, because it does tend to collect water and cause problems
Oh.
if it's sitting too long.
Uh-huh.
So we
Ferments.
try to keep a minimal amount on hand, but I agree, this is high and it is a budgeted amount based on what we might see as far as.
Yeah, it
powerhouse
could happen,
operation,
yeah.
But the last 5 years, we've been just very low on our usage there.
So if it's just sitting there, do we move it? Can we move it to the trucks or?
It's on our capital projects list to put in a fueling station at the
Oh,
tank up there so that we could fuel mobile equipment.
yeah, and then it could at least cycle through
Yes,
while we hope to never need it.
exactly.
Where do you see diesel?
Hmm?
Where do you see the diesel?
Under
Expenses,
under
line.
expenses, the third line
Oh,
item,
on
diesel
paper.
fuel, yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So Brandy, so you're saying generous as in $25,000 is too much relative. Our 5-year average has been what? Like
I would
5,000?
have to look, but I mean, our budget was based on running the powerhouse every month, and we run it probably twice a year at this point, the last few years. The last major run was during the Caldwell fire, so.
Yeah, and then when PG&E
Right.
had their power shut off, we ran for a week or so, a few weeks.
So I agree, we should not lower this just.
Yeah, I don't
because
want to,
Those things
Sure.
can happen, but this is.
That's our-
the actual.
yeah.
So when Amanda shows the year-to-date numbers next time, that there will be a difference there.
Any other questions in electric? And then moving on to cable.
A lot of questions there.
I already flipped past it.
And then the snow removal fund.
And what's gonna be the timing on the contracts?
We're looking to get these to you in conjunction with a finalized budget.
So this will be trued up then with the contract, when the contracts are
Yes.
written. Good. That's a big improvement.
We want to give the community time to, HOA's time to plan and prepare, and get this to you as early as possible. And then moving on to the propane fund. Any questions here? And then solid waste. And if there's no questions there, that brings us to the conclusion of the draft budget.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to 10E, FY27 draft capital budget. Page 124.
All right, so as Chris noted, we did make some updates to the narrative for the capital budget based on the finance committee meeting and their comments. What really has changed here is that this major project section has been added. So this is just a summary of any projects throughout the district that total $250,000 or more in one single project. And then in addition to this summary, we have in each fund a description of what each project is. In addition to the narrative that we have here, we do have the capital budget itself. Which I'll scroll down to, sorry. And again, the comments that were noted, the 35-year total, those have been checked. We did find a couple of errors in our formulas there. Confirmed employee housing, hot water heaters, is budgeted at a seemingly high amount. Our last installation was in 2023 for $10,000. So that budget number is staying here for now.
Are those electric or propane, the replacements?
They are propane, but they're tankless and they require, since the venting in the building is not correct for these units, they have to be cored and vented, which is why the cost is so high.
Okay, could they be electric?
We can look into that. I don't know why not. So we'll take a look at that.
Okay.
And then just a final note on the capital projects budget here. We've got these new columns, funding source and project type. This is just an attempt to tie it in better with the operating budget. So where are the funds coming from? And what type of project is it? Is it a lump sum project that we're hiring out? Is it a fixed asset? Is it just part of our normal operating? So with that, does anybody have any questions or comments on the capital budget or the narrative?
I have a question about 35-year column. How to even think about it. I mean, in the narrative, I think you state that you're only listing major projects over a 5-year period. So, I mean, I suppose if you're taking this long 35-year perspective, you say, oh, well, what are directionally the big items that are going to hit us? Which utilities are going to need $10 million of investment or whatever? It's surprising, for example, that $36 million over 35 years and 12 million over 5 years. So that means our investment rate is going to slow down. I don't know why it would. I guess
It won't.
yeah, but the numbers suggest it. And so I guess my advice or just first impression would be, if we're going to talk about 35-year, that's valuable. I might make it a whole different report, but if we are, then give us please a sense of a higher level sense, like what are the big 35-year horizon things that are going to hit us in electric. Electric has always been moving along at a pretty low CapEx rate in the last, since we put the transmission line in, but obviously that will change. And what are those changes that'll occur that'll account for, I don't know, what is it, $5-6 million over 35 years? Make the long horizon stuff a bit more narrative would be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
What's the estimate on the Out Valley line where it's survival? How many years or before we have to start replacing that?
The useful life on a power line itself is usually about 50 years. I'll have to go back and look at our depreciation schedule.
Yeah.
But that's what we're anticipating.
Yeah.
And it's why you don't see, $58 million in the 35-year even for electric.
Because a portion of it's direct buried versus
Almost all of it.
it's direct buried.
Yeah, almost all.
I thought a lot of it was in conduit.
No, just where it goes through out here and where it crosses a road.
In the Caltrans right of way, it's in conduit.
Yeah. Right.
Isn't conduit mean buried?
It does.
Oh,
but
direct buried. Sorry.
Direct buried.
Yeah, sorry.
The longevity,
Yeah.
it's in
I'm
conduit,
sorry.
and then it's easier to replace.
Yeah, you just spend more to be able to make it easy to replace for the next board. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Any questions?
That's good.
Okay,
cool, thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so I believe now we're on to agenda item 11, administration report.
All right, we'll get started with overview and budget variances. John had mentioned wanting to see sort of an operating snapshot. I will add that to the overview and budget variances for the next time this is presented, but I brought this up in the finance committee meeting. We know that we are about $397,000 under budget on revenue, and that about $240,000 of that is attributable to the timing recognition of snow removal revenue. And that puts us at a point where we have an actual revenue variance of about $150,000. We are also about $160,000 under budget on expenses. So putting those numbers together, we are doing well.
How much of that is cost of sales?
I'm sure a significant.
Most of it,
portion is
yeah,
gonna be
okay.
cost of sales. With non-operating included in that bottom line, we are worse than budget by $120,000 approximately. Again, about 240 of that difference is attributable to the snow removal recognition. So we are on track. Were there any questions on the overview and budget variances sheet?
And with the snow removal season wrapping up, that'll all true up, so.
Yeah.
We won't have to do the mental adjustments soon.
Very soon. And then moving on to the consolidated balance sheet. We can see those variances as listed on the overview. Does anyone have any questions here?
You tell me what page that is. It's a little hard to read.
148.
148. That was close.
Moving on to the budget income statement. Combined. Did anyone have any questions here? We can clearly see here on the operating revenues that break down the difference of the 397 we mentioned before. Like we said, about 240 of that is attributable to the snow removal recognition. And that bottom line number we talked about earlier. And then, did anyone have any questions on any of the individual income statements? No? I think that moves us along to preliminaries for March. Our March preliminaries are showing a variance dollar of about $73,000. We are a bit better than budget. Did anyone have any questions here on the preliminaries?
Yeah, I mean, it's also, you have to adjust for snow removal under other.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And if there's no questions there, that brings us to our cash flow report, which Matt is going to present for us.
Only Matt can explain.
You there?
All right, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. As you all recall from the last meeting, we have been working with the finance committee to provide a cash flow statement that follows generally accepted accounting principles and provides some additional information as well as a cash flow forecast. As you'll see on the top section, the cash flow to dates go through the February 2026 column, where all of our accounts combined, we were about a little over $8 million. I'll show you what that represents in just a second, but the next section, there was a request at the board meeting last month to look at our key operating accounts, our operating fund, our revenue account, and our capital reserve account, and compare those to budget and take a look at where we're at compared to where we thought we'd be at. So we added this section. The first grade line there, the variance is the variance for the operating fund. The key difference for that represents the debt that we rolled forward earlier in the year. And so our cash position in our operating fund is a little higher because of that. And you'll see a slight variance in our capital reserve fund as well. So a little bit over what we had budgeted in our capital reserve fund. So that's the new section to the report this month. As I mentioned before, that $8 million, we have to do a cash flow organization wide. And so obviously you have a lot of accounts that aren't as important for the board to consider. They just have very little activity. And we're really focused in that next section on the current assets fund detail, the operating fund revenue. And so that gray line shows you how much cash is in the operating fund. Also, the capital reserve is the line below that, and you'll see the total of all of the accounts equals the $8 million that is shown up in the cash flow statement above. Again, the sections below that, or that next section, is really just a summary of everything that's included in that operating fund. So there are a number of accounts, including like petty cash and a small investment in LAIF. But the key there is an operating fund revenue bank account, $3,414,000 for the month of February. And that number, I just want to draw your attention to the very last section below, which is a summary back to your bank statement. So we're looking at not only the cash that's recorded in your financial statements, but how that's reflected in your actual bank statements. And you can see for the Five Star Bank, the revenue account, there are some reconciling items for about $115,000. And that's just due to timing differences. So items that have been reflected in the financial statements that haven't cleared the bank yet. And then there are no reconciling items. The bank balance and the book balance for the reserve fund are the exact same amount. There were no timing differences at the end of the month. So that's just a quick summary of this new cash flow statement that's been included. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Matt.
It's self-explanatory, which is pretty cool.
And we have plenty of cash.
Yeah.
When we rolled over the 1.3, how did we decide to put it in operating reserve versus capital? Was that even an option? Does it matter?
Through
I don't think we actually moved any of the cash because the capital reserve account's been pretty consistent over the months. The amount that a cash would have come out of the operating fund, and then obviously you can reimburse it with the capital reserve account.
I'm sorry, so if we had paid off the loan, that would have come out of operating reserve, so it made sense to put the plan to put the rollover in the operating reserve. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we had budgeted to remove that cash or make that payment from our operating account in the budget, and
Okay.
because we didn't make the payment, we kept that cash on hand.
All right, all good.
Mhm.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the last of the financials, we're just taking a look at the 501c3 balance sheet and the budget income statement for the KVFD fund. Were there any questions here? All right.
Nope. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 12, operations report.
So under our new format here, performance reporting is going to live under the operations report. We have that in your packet and up here on the screen. Year to date, we are running at 8% unidentified system losses in electric, as opposed to our goal of 12, so slightly better. We look at propane. The discrepancies that we were seeing midwinter seem to have resolved. We're at a 4% year-to-date loss. Usually for propane, we do see some positive and negative losses, but they usually lead us to about 0%. So we're on track there to get to 0% by the end of the year. For water, we show a second month of a negative 6% loss. These are just due to tank levels and the timing of our reads. Year to date, when we look at that number, it's a 10% loss overall, goal of 15%. So we are on track as well.
We don't write down what the goal is, yes, we do.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Nothing, I didn't see the goal, but of course it's on the left column.
It is for everything except wastewater,
Yeah.
which we show
I&I.
here. Wastewater, a goal is something that we're working towards in the EOP and our losses project. For wastewater, year to date, we're showing a 33% loss. This is not out of the realm of what we have seen historically here. This is higher than we want to see it. But as you can see here, in warm months where we have precipitation in the form of rain, or if we see melt off of snow, we're seeing I&I. So extra water getting into our sewer system that is not sewage. So that is a focus of our operations department this summer, is to seek to quantify and eliminate some of these losses.
The I&I is the identified unmetered usage. It's not the 30, I mean, it's not 33% I&I, is it?
It is.
Is that-
yes. So,
okay.
So
I&I's infiltration and what's the other I again?
inflow and infiltration.
Okay,
So we don't, on the other departments, we call these losses. For wastewater, it's a little tricky to call
Right.
it losses.
It's gain.
Not a loss, it's extra water getting in.
again.
So we call it this.
It's overachievement.
But unidentified unmetered is you and you, but I&I really, right?
Correct.
Okay,
That is correct. And that's
I
all I
guess-
have unless there's any questions here.
Well, just one thing I want to point out on the water usage. I mean, our business is totally dependent on weather. And so look at March, if you look at residency days, there's a little over 300,000 and a good March is 800,000.
Residency days.
Yeah, if you look at the straight lines,
Oh, all right, yeah.
the gold one or yellow is this year. And you can see that the green and black ones are good, years with good snow. So I find that these charts are interesting in terms of it's the only place where we really see year over year performance. And also, in the case of water, it's all about residency. In the case of propane, it's all about temperature.
Mhm. Yeah,
In the spirit of consistency, because I had to do a double take here, would it be easier to see these as fiscal year colors on the lines for years instead of, because our table is in fiscal.
Let me say the programmer would have to do extra work to make these fiscal years, but it probably would be better.
Well, I think we have a really good programmer.
Yeah, and that program is freeing up from one of the current tasks. So yeah, I would want to, yeah, it'd make more sense to have those be fiscal years. I agree.
Make note of that.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
on electric, Bob, you made the comment earlier that we'll likely finish up the year, was it 6.5 maybe?
my prediction is 6.4.
Yeah, because we see here at 9 months through the year to date, we're at about 5.1 instead of 5.5. So we're about 8% under plan in volume of electric.
Yeah, what I did is I just took the average April, May, and June for the last.
Right.
I mean, if you look at this, almost every bar for this year is lower than every other
Right.
bar.
And this season, this is shoulder, off season. So if those 3 months totaled 1 million, that would be, that'd be high, unlikely.
Yeah. Anyway, we could have a lottery on
Betting market.
a betting market on it, yeah. But it's certainly a low year.
Not going to be 7.
No.
Okay.
And the good news is we cover all of our debt service in a low
Yeah.
year.
Good point.
Right, and that's all I have for the operations report.
Thank you. Move on now to agenda item 13, the general manager's report.
And so filling in for Rick here, he included the major projects update that the board has seen before here. No major changes to this, just including this in the back.
Couple of thoughts on this, just because I feel like this, for whatever reason, this is my meeting to be focused on fiscal years. I mentioned this a long time ago with Eric, and I think he preferred calendar year, but I feel like I would just prefer all of us to always work in fiscal personally, just in that way I don't have to convert. This was always done in calendar year. I would like to move us to fiscal. And since this is also calendar year, I think we can remove Q1 now from this too. So, I don't know if we need to do it by quarter or we can do it by fiscal year at the end. I think that's probably just as good, but let's be consistent on that. So that's my first thought, is move everything to fiscal. The second is, we've been using this document as part of the memorialization process that we just talked about with the electric rate study. So at the very bottom here, there are some items here, and I'd like us to be consistent in that too, so that we're making sure that some of the things that we talked about of like moving some of that, the variable costs, fixed cost, variable cost allocations that we talked about, some of those things as items that we consider to the future. And we can discuss more, which should go on this list, but I just want to call that out as a concept that we've had.
Okay. Made it up.
Anything else for the general manager's report? Questions, board? Okay. Let's move on to agenda item 14, standing committee reports. We'll start with finance.
We talked about the financial performance, the capital budget, the operating budget, budget assumptions, so nothing further to cover.
All right, EOP, Peter.
We didn't meet.
Okay, communications, Chris.
We did meet and, well, I think I missed the meeting, but no, I was there. That was, yeah, so we did meet. Our major communication was in the newsletter. It was the electric rates and the bad news around the fire, and next steps around the fire assessment, I should say. And so, in addition, what an important comms thing is the letter that explains the electric rate study. And I've made the point earlier in the meeting that we might want to upgrade things like our budget document so it's more comms friendly. Bob put out the offer for anyone to contribute over the next couple of weeks, suggestions to the rate study document. We continue with the process of with regard to the newsletter. The comms committee is now in the habit of talking about the number one item that might be on whatever the number one item on the lead story for the news story will be, and we on the committee have put a rough draft forward so that just to take the burden off Rick and Brandy going forward. But it's always at their discretion, and then we also fill out 2 or 3 bullets of what the board is doing at the bottom of the newsletter.
I'll also note that we have a new logo that we've implemented and is on the screen right now. So I've seen that in some of our communications. I still see a couple that we'll need to update in places, but we're slowly doing that. So
I saw it on a truck today.
I
thought
No,
I think so.
no, you saw the old one.
I think you saw the old one.
It's on a truck.
I must have been. He must have been driving too fast.
Okay.
Well, related to communications, we do have the 4th of July event. And if we want to encourage people to think about it, that might want to be in the mid-May. So I want to.
That's
Yeah.
Yes. I was,
Is there a plan? Is there a plan for that in the appropriate place in this meeting, though?
yeah, I was
we
going to bring that
inform?
up for general board discussion,
Okay,
maybe
great.
where we
We'll
can touch
wait
a
till
little
then.
bit more
That's fine.
where we are and timelines on that.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I appreciate bringing it up. The personnel committee did not meet. IT and cybersecurity,
We didn't meet.
and then LAFCO did not meet. Temporary advisory committees, electric rate study. Anything to add, Bob or Chris?
Nothing
I
to
heard everything
covered
we have.
exhaustively.
Okay.
You've heard everything we have to say.
I will assume that we can keep this on the next agenda, and then we could potentially remove it from our. We'll close it out after we voted on whether
Sure.
we vote. Okay. The general manager labor negotiation appointment, that is, we've talked about that already today, and we're very excited with Brandy coming on as new general manager effective September 4th. So I will close that committee officially, and then that will not be on the next agenda. Okay, so for KVFD next steps, that's Bob and I. So we've had a couple conversations here. I'll just say at a high level, the focus of the committee is to make sure that we have a plan for what happens on September 4th. So as a reminder, Rick Ansel, who is our general manager, he is also our volunteer fire chief. And so he is resigning from both positions effective September 4th. And it is important to the board that we have credentialed leadership to be able to help us move forward. And so our focus right now is on short-term initiatives that can help us solve that, which doesn't really include a different vehicle like a CFD or another 218 process. So our focus is on initiatives that we can have some sort of service that would help us have a fire chief in training. So in that spirit, Bob and I and Rick and Brandy will be speaking with Alpine County leadership next week, which is Sam Booth, who's the new CEO, Supervisor Woodrow, and Charles McKee, who is the just moved out of the CEO position at Alpine County. So we have a call with them next week. And then Rick has already started conversations with partner fire chiefs around and started the conversation of looking into options that we could potentially explore there. So we're moving as in this direction and as a focus towards what happens after September 4th. Anything else to add, Bob?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. General board discussion. So anything else on committees? Otherwise, we'll move on to 16, which is general board discussion. The first thing I will say is, independent of what I just said, I did meet with Sam Booth just to meet him and introduce himself to the board. I know I saw his name he's still here. He's on the meeting today, so it's great to have Sam involved. Charles McKee, again, who is his predecessor, also joined the call. So we've got some good continuity. And very excited. Sam seems like a great partner that we'll be able to have great conversations with. So it was really nice to be able to meet him and to just lay some groundwork for our relationship. The next thing I would say is in terms of the summer festival, that is something that we've been discussing. I think we don't have we as in the summer festival committee who puts this on, working on the conversation with Kirkwood Mountain Resort on the Epic Promise Grant is the current process of making sure that that's been approved and given out before we can make any decisions on what and where and how and when this actually happens. My understanding is that there's a wedding planned for Saturday, July 4th. So the event, if we were to do it through the partnership with the Epic Promise Grant, will not happen on that Saturday. And so we're trying to finalize what that looks like and where the grant is going to happen. So that's happening right now behind the scenes. A lot of people are trying to help motivate and move that forward. So ideally, we'll have something in the newsletter. I was hoping to have something announced today. That was kind of my big push, is to get this out today. But I don't think we have any firm confirmation that we can give for that at this point, unfortunately.
Okay, so the people working on it are
working on it.
Are you and
I would say I am not on the summer festival committee. It was just escalated to me that we were trying to figure out some nuances and some details on the Epic Promise. And so,
okay, who's on the committee?
So Jennifer Herbert who works at the KCA has been the lead on this, and she works really closely with Rick. But we know we've had staff support from like Amanda and Brandy who have also contributed in this, but it's really Jennifer and Rick, I would say, who lead the charge on this at this point.
Okay, thank you.
And so that's who we are focused on. And appreciate Kelly Keith, who responded, has helped get us moving on some of these things, and Ricky Newberry as well, who have helped us get some clarity on the Epic Promise Grant in the past couple of days. And so that's why we're trying to get that clarification.
Okay, I have one item I just want to mention. So there's a California Municipal Rates Group, which is all of the municipal utilities in California. There's 27 of them that participate. Eric and I participated 2 years ago. The meeting rotates once a year into different things. So it's being held at the Roseville Electric Utility. And the topic this time they pulled together, they asked all of the participating utilities to say what their 3-year rate plan is. So I found it highly useful. I'll be happy to send that to everybody so you can see. But Brandy and I will be there next week, Tuesday and Wednesday.
Roseville.
Yeah.
So does it mean we will host it sometimes in the next 27 years?
Kirkwood will have it, yeah.
We could offer. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So it's the entire state. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so I'll say there's 27
27.
municipals that produce. I mean, BART, it's everything from BART to LADWP and SMUD, right?
And Palo Alto.
And Palo Alto is in it. Yeah. So
Clara.
yeah, so it's all of them. Yeah,
Well, please let us know what you find out.
we will.
Okay. Anything else?
Have we sent an invite to the HOAs for them to be able to use the building for annual meetings?
Not to my knowledge.
So what I have done, and I can follow up with the HOAs in that regard, but I have emailed every HOA president at the end of the last board meeting. I went and summarized a lot of what we discussed, right? The results of the fire assessment. And one of the things I did in that email was I did note if you would like the KMPUD to be present at your meeting, in terms of last year, Brandy, Rick, and I went to I think 6 or 7 HOA meetings over the course of that one weekend, plus other ones. That offer was made, and we have a list that I've been keeping with Brandy and Rick on that. I did not make the offer to that in that meeting, but I can follow up and do that.
Do you want to do that, everybody?
Yeah, I think it's
I'm in
great.
favor.
It's called the Community Building for hopefully a good reason.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that.
Good idea.
And I will just say to anyone listening, of course, if you're in your HOA or your HOA leadership, please reach out to me if you'd like us to come and speak to your HOA at any time during, typically annual meetings happen over the summer. And that's what we've typically done for that sort of topic. But I will make sure to follow up on that.
Yeah, Chris, let's put that in what the board's doing. Mention that.
HOA,
HOA, encouraging them to invite us to for an update.
And I think maybe, I don't have it in front of me, but I think 5 HOAs have responded that they're interested again this year. So
And this would be traditionally 4th of July.
a lot of them do meet 4th of July weekend. It's pretty typical. So
Yeah.
KMA and East Meadows, they do that typically. So, yeah. Okay. Any other board discussion? Okay,
Yeah.
otherwise then I will adjourn today's meeting and remind everyone that our next regular board meeting is scheduled for Friday, June 5th, 2026 at 2 p.m. Please come if you're available. We'd love to have you.
the July one is on the 3rd, July 4th weekend, holiday weekend. Yeah.
All right, thanks everyone.
Okay.